Riverhead Lockdown Theatre Company presents the nation's best-loved bumbling Bobby, Detective Stephen Harding, in the second exhilarating episode of the serial Murder on the Oriental Princess. The location, a luxury cruise liner in the Atlantic. Once turning right past the oil slick out of Southampton, ignore the dolphins on the left and take a further right by the sperm whale.
I'm Harding, Detective Steve Harding. I was moonlighting as a personal assistant for the tycoon Mr. Gus Garcia. He was suspected of tax evasion, but after walking in on him in the interconnecting shower room between our cabins one morning, I could see he had nothing to hide. Last night, I stumbled right into a crime scene. Serves me right for not switching the light on when I went to investigate the storage cupboard in the kitchen. Inside was the body of one of the serving maids, Poppy, with a knife protruding from her chest. There was a moment of guilt for me. I was the guest who had sent her back for a night. The murderer was clearly one of the 9 suspects in front of me. I had revealed my true identity and planned to bring him or her to justice. There were 8 suspects. Mr. Gus Garcia could upset a lot of the other passengers through his job as a media tycoon, shareholder, and basically for being an American. His wife, Daisy, who was one rhododendron short of a bouquet. Father James Clanger, who had some dirty habits hanging in his wardrobe. Mary Jones, who was after a fornication-free holiday coming to terms with the recent death of her mother. Fred Bassett, a music producer who was anything but sweetie. His ailing mother Marge, whose loss of hearing had a tendency to come on whenever it suited her. Charles Alcott, a classic pianist whose Britain was worse than his Bach. Tiffany Pembridge, who hadn't scored a top-charting hit since recording My Love Live with an all-male chorus. And Marie Barrett, a waitress working on the liner, who was assisting me with my dictation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Due to an incident on the top deck, we will be unable to stop off tomorrow at Cousin Mel as planned. Don't worry, we sent an email to Cousin Mel, and he's put cling film on the sandwiches and wishes us well.
I'd requested to the captain that we weigh anchor at sea for a few days. I don't know why, I personally prefer weighing Lurpak. I debriefed my new assistant, Marie, in her duty. Once she was out of her briefs, it was time to get to work. Just listen into my interviews and see if you can catch anything suspicious.
You're asking me to spy on them?
We prefer to call it surveillance. We detectives have to remain inconspicuous. Try clearing the table or dropping a knife. Usual things, but keep an ear out.
Don't you think that'll look suspicious?
Pass me that glass of water, would you?
Yeah, I see.
Follow me. Gus's table first.
About time. We're all dying to know what's going on.
Perhaps not your best turn of phrase, Mr. Garcia.
Ha! Yeah, sorry. But come on. We'd all kill to find out more. Oh, come on, Peachy Cheeks. We have to make the best of a bad situation. The gal's curled up her toes. But I didn't do it, and I'm determined to have the good time I paid for. Now, I fancy splashing out a bit. Fancy a drink, darling?
If you say so, Gussie.
Well, I think you could do with being spoiled. Say, waitress, what would you recommend for my wife?
Tequila?
No, I don't want to kill her. Merely buy her a drink.
Detective, must Father James and I be questioned alongside the Garcias? I find his callousness rather unappetizing.
I'm afraid I'd much prefer to carry out the interrogation at the scene of the crime, with people vaguely in the same positions as to when the body was discovered. First of all, I shall have to ask each of you to account for your movements.
Oh, no trouble there, I can assure you, Inspector. A good spoonful of syrup of figs, and I go regularly, 6:30 a.m. every morning.
I meant regarding your movements between 11 p.m. on the first night of the cruise and 7 a.m. yesterday morning.
I say, are you going to write everything down?
Come, Father. It's not the first time you've been hauled in for questioning. Far from it.
I'm afraid it is standard procedure, Father.
Well, I went for a jimmy after dinner, another before bed, and once during the night.
A Jimmy.
Gus, don't be silly. You know we went straight to bed and were there all night.
All night. Perhaps you should see the ship's doctor about that, Mr. Garcia. Miss Jones, your story, please.
I stayed in my cabin and locked the door.
To stop anybody getting in?
Or even to stop somebody getting out?
I did hear some noise, though, a commotion, coming from further along the corridor.
Voices?
Yes, but I'm afraid it was too muffled to tell what was being said.
Marie, which of the guests has cabins on either side?
Well, on one side is Father Clanger.
Father James.
I haven't the faintest idea. After a quick fiddle with my rosary, I was out like a light. The excitement, you know, so exhausting.
And the other side, Marie?
The Garcias.
Guilty as charged, Detective. The wife and I were having quite the romp in the hay on that first night. Why, I even heard the captain had to engage the stabilizers. The old boat was rocking somewhat.
Early nights all around then, it seems. Now, can I ask what you were all wearing?
Why?
Just a routine question.
Nothing I was wearing was remotely routine, Detective.
My superior likes us to be thorough in our initial questioning, so we don't miss anything that may prove vital to the case later on.
Daisy had on black stockings and suspenders and the most expensive silk red dress which fitted her like a rubber glove.
Black stockings and suspenders. Gracious. And yourself, sir?
Nope, I don't wear lingerie. I'm not into that sort of thing.
No, beg pardon. I meant underwear.
Goofy.
I beg your pardon?
My shorts. They had Goofy on them. They were a present from one of my secretaries.
Anything else, Mr. Garcia?
I say, steady on, Steve. The wife's in earshot, remember?
I meant, were you wearing anything else?
I'm telling you, Steve, you won't find a stitch on me.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
Do try and be a bit more careful with the drinks, Marie.
Say, Oliver Hardy, what's the game having Stan Laurel help you out on the notes?
Now, Mr. Garcia, I must warn you that I'll take down anything you say.
Now, this could be interesting.
Kindly answer the question, Mr. Garcia.
Oh, come on. You don't really suspect me, do you, Clive?
Steve.
I had a red silk hanky ready to mop up after Laurel there.
Ah, good. Miss Jones?
Must I, Inspector?
If you don't mind, Miss Jones.
Brown skirt and beige blouse.
And your undergarments, if you were wearing any.
I most certainly was. Marks and Spencer's, white cotton, reinforced. I got up in the middle of the night to fetch them. Extra strong elastic too. Thank you very much.
Why?
To stop them slipping down my arm.
No. Why did you fetch them in the middle of the night?
I woke up feeling cold. There's nothing suspicious about that.
Isn't there?
Not in the slightest. I even talked to the captain. He mentioned it was probably caused by the wind from the south.
Perhaps you should have checked your porthole.
No further questions, Miss Jones. Father James, your attire?
Black suit, white shirt, black tie. Very dull, I'm afraid.
Can I ask if either of you had anything read with you?
There's the newspaper. I've always got that read by the end of the day.
As in the colour, Father Clanger?
No, sorry.
Red, did you say?
Something you're not telling us, Father James?
Time to go to confessional, Father.
Do you mind?
Something about your underwear, James?
Yeah, come on, James. Best get it off your chest.
I shan't warn you again, Mr. Garcia. I've tutored at the St. Benedict's Fisticuffs Championships for 13 to 16-year-olds for the past 2 decades.
About your underwear, Father.
I fear it may be time to air the dirty laundry, Father.
That's brilliant. Much better than mine.
May I have a private word?
I'm not a walking thesaurus, Father. Exclusive?
No, I meant, can I have a word with you in private?
Of course. Discretion is my middle name.
Really? Mine's Jane.
My undergarments were some red silk.
Yes, well, that's enough information for now.
Rather too much, if you ask me. What a scoop for the tabloids on Sunday.
I shall be back, but I must now start my initial inquiries with the second table. Till later. Ladies, gentlemen.
Clive! I mean Steve. What's the gent? Are we safe, or is there a loony on the loose?
I hardly slept a wink last night.
I told you not to give that pianist your phone number.
Mr. Bassett, Mrs. Bassett, Miss Pembridge, Mr. Alcock. I have a lot of your details, but I need filling in.
Manners to wait till you're asked, detective.
Can I ask what your actions were after leaving the salon on the first night of the cruise?
You can't think one of us did it.
Perhaps we can start with you, telling us where you were and what you wore that evening.
Must we?
If you don't, you're only adding suspicion to yourselves. All your information will be duly noted.
No need to fetch Julie. I can take the notes.
Goodness. Well, I had a drink in the bar, and then when I'd had enough...
We were having quite the boogie, weren't we, Charlie? Until that new single from his ex came on over the PA system, when he burst into tears and stormed out the room with his hands over his ears.
You were singing it, you mean?
Yes, well, I admit I may have got a little overdramatic, so I went to my cabin and slept it off.
Clothes, sir?
Oh, I soon slipped those off. Whole outfit by Versace. One simply has to stick to a single designer to make sure an outfit really gels together properly. Latest collection, of course.
Any of it red?
Red? No. Too garish for a cruise dinner.
You wore that red cravat, didn't you?
Oh, yes, well spotted.
Made a note of that, Marie.
Oh, yes. A well-spotted cravat.
I added it for a splash of colour. Matched your headscarf, Tiff.
A red headscarf?
Yes, it's one of my favourites. I was famous for always having a scarf tied round my hair. My friends would copy it.
But now that their arthritis has set in, they can't tie the knots anymore.
How dare you?
You can vouch for this?
Of course not. It's just that Gladys and Mildred are busy with their grandchildren now.
No, I meant that you were indeed wearing a red scarf on the night in question.
Yes, I was. Though, how could that possibly be relevant?
That's for me to know, madam.
And us to find out?
I'll have you know I am circumspect.
Oh, really? How very interesting. Mapletoft.
What, Mr. Bassett, were your antics on the night in question, sir?
Well, I took Mother back to cabin, and as far as I know, she stayed there. She called my room at 3 a.m. and she got lost going to the loo. Again.
That reminds me, I really should get a lock fitted to my wardrobe.
Mrs. Bassett, did you stay in your room too?
Room with a view?
No, you went to the loo. The privy.
She was a chambermaid, not a skivvy, dear.
No, the loo.
Well, how rude. Some of us are trying to play here.
I heard a noise coming from the corridor, but it was just Marie going through her bedroom door. You know, the little one down the end with the big knockers.
Quite. What time was that?
Just before Mother's now infamous call of nature, so about 1:30.
I see. And what were you wearing?
Grey suit, white shirt, boring office clothes.
Yes, I can attest to that.
You weren't in my cabin.
Heavens, no. But they are boring office clothes.
At 1 a.m.
Wouldn't matter what time of day, Detective. They're still boring clothes.
I'm interrogating my suspect.
Suspect?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I suspect all of you. Especially when you won't tell me why you were fully clothed at such an hour.
Look, if you must know, I sleep au natural. All right? So when I heard Mother calling, I just grabbed the nearest thing to me, and that happened to be me suit. That's all.
You slept in the raw last night?
Yes.
Didn't you notice the wind?
I keep telling you, Mother and I had different cabins.
Your mother, sir. Can you remember what she was wearing? Anything red?
Mother, the first night of the cruise, did you wear anything red?
Eh?
First night of the cruise, anything red?
No! I think I had white wine.
What did you wear?
Loaths, dear. What do you think?
Oh, for heaven's sake. Marie, pass me the pen and paper. Were you wearing anything red?
Hang on. Where did I put my specs?
R-E-D. Red.
Red! Yes, dear. What about it?
Wearing red.
Yes, I am. Only my red knickerbockers.
Not now. Then.
Yes.
You had red ones on then as well?
Oh, yes. That's what I said.
Bloody hell.
What?
She's only got the one red pair.
Look, this is supposed to be a cruise, Inspector. It's bad enough being cooped up on the deck like cattle. I demand answers. Just what's the relevance of all these silly questions?
All right, I'll tell you. As you are all aware, Poppy was found dead last night. She was completely naked, her uniform shoved in the cupboard beside her. She died from a single stab wound. It would have been quick. It punctured the heart. Well, one of them anyway. When we removed the knife, we not only found her body underneath, but also red fibers in the wound. Her uniform was black and white, so it's a fair assumption that the red material must have belonged to the killer.
Not an awful lot to go on, you must admit, Inspector.
Well, Mr. Alcock, we do have the murder weapon.
And where's that then?
Oh, it's somewhere in the cutlery drawer in the kitchen. We put it through the wash.
Through the wash? But why?
Well, it had blood on it, didn't it? Can I ask if any of you had any dealing with Mr. Garcia, or indeed his wife, Daisy?
Oh, I wish. I wanted him to produce my comeback album.
Huh. Come back? More like humpback with the amount of whaling she does on it.
Mr. Garcia thinks I'm past my prime.
Aye, and he's not the only one. I've heard prettier things from a demolition site.
Yet you must have shared some frank discussions with Mr. Garcia, Mr. Bassett.
That's as may be. Business is business.
Any heated discussions?
There was that time we had a disagreement in the sauna in one of his elf farms, yes.
What about you, Mr. Alcock? Come to any blows with Mr. Garcia?
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Garcia, any blows?
I'm sure I'd remember if we did, Inspector. I can't say I like the man, but I don't have anything to do with him.
Didn't I hear there was something about him signing up your ex-lover?
He may very well have signed up my ex, but Detective, you really shouldn't call me lover.
Right, yes. And what about Mrs. Garcia?
Precisely. What about Mrs. Garcia? She has the wrong plumbing for me.
I was making little headway with my investigations. I decided to let the suspects wander about the deck or return to their cabins for the remainder of the day, deciding that they were most likely to let their guard down at the next evening meal. To pass the time, I busied myself with a 4-hour marathon playing Cluedo with the waitress, Marie. After a dozen games, we'd done at every possible weapon in every possible room.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Didn't we have fun dolphin spotting earlier today? Don't worry, folks, the ink will wash off. It's dinner time once more, so make your way to your tables and enjoy your evening.
Sorry, Ma didn't hear the dinner bell, or the alarm bell, or my telephone call, or me hammering on the door for 15 minutes.
Hey!
Euthanasia seems like an excellent idea to me.
Is that where we're going then?
What?
Australia!
Mr. Bassett, would it be fair to surmise that you and Mr. Garcia are competitive rivals?
Suppose you could say that. Music industry's a dog-eat-dog business.
A mistress? Wouldn't be surprised. Do you know he stole Freddie's first wife, Inspector?
Shush, mother.
Proper little lady killer.
First wife?
I was glad to get rid of her. My first wife would hound me to death of an evening.
Mrs. Bassett? Hound?
He were doing me a favour, Inspector. Look, I get what you're trying to insinuate, and I'll admit it. Gus is number one on my hit list, and I'm not talking about Top of the Pops. But I fail to see how my displeasure at Mr. Garcia has any relevance to the case in hand. If you really want to see an unhappily married man, you should look no further than Mr. Garcia himself. Both Ma and I think he's had nothing but bad luck in that department.
He seems perfectly happy with Daisy to me. Wife number 4.
Well, I'm convinced that the first was the worst, the second from Peckham just couldn't be reckoned, and the last was vast. And Ma was aghast.
Yes. Well, you'll have to excuse me.
Usual drink, Detective Harding?
Yes, please, Marie.
Are you getting anywhere?
In a word, no. I seem to be going round in circles.
Perhaps I shouldn't have said anything about Daisy and Poppy looking alike.
No, it could be important.
Probably just a coincidence.
You seemed very sure of yourself when you thought Poppy had taken Daisy's place. You mistook them, and perhaps somebody else made the same mistake.
You mean the murderer could have killed the wrong person?
It's a possibility, but keep it to yourself. We don't want to panic the Garcias.
Perhaps we could ask the other decks if there's a bodyguard on board.
What? And risk involving an accomplice? Take my advice. Much better if we just have to keep a close eye over them.
You're the teacher and I'm the pupil.
Are you sure you can't get any cornea?
Here he is, the double-crosser. I suppose I'll have to find myself a new personal assistant.
Oh, come on, Gus. I was only doing my job. If it helps, throughout all my uncover detective work, I've yet to find a single business transaction of yours that would justify a court action.
I can't say I'm surprised by that. I'm a thoroughly scrupulous individual. Ask my wife, Daisy.
Oh, he sure is. I've never known a man scroop as much as my big Gussie.
Thanks, Daisy. All my undertakings, Steve, are handled by senior professionals before I get my hands on them.
So it seems. Hence why your first wife was married to Mr. Bassett before you made her a better deal, I take it.
God damn it! Is that old buffoon still blathering on about that? I've moved on with my Daisy. I can't see why he can't let bygones be bygones. All water under the bridge as far as I'm concerned, Steve. That first wife is now pushing up the daisies, and well, I'm now pushing up my Care for another drink?
I already have one, thank you. Excuse me, I best go over to the bar. I have to question the father and Miss Jones.
Well, Inspector, can I give you a large one?
I already have one, thank you, Father.
Oh, yes, how marvellous.
Father, I have to ask, do you have any sort of grudge against Mr. or Mrs. Garcia?
Why, they weren't murdered.
Just answer the questions, please. I am a police detective.
I've never met them before this cruise.
What about that article about your endeavours in the pews? Wasn't that Gus's paper?
Well, yes, but I've never met him. It shouldn't surprise you to learn that Mr. Garcia is not always interested in parity when it comes to his tabloids. It's just a grot rag, only useful for lining hamster cages.
But you knew it was his paper.
Who doesn't? He's a media mogul after all. He never shuts up about his business. The man's a bore, and I reckon all the bravado and smutty jokes are a cover. There's definitely more than meets the eye with him. I can tell you, Inspector.
How do you know?
My dear Mr. Harding, one doesn't spend a lifetime in the confessional booth without spotting a guilty person when one sees one.
And what about you, Mary?
No two ways about it. He's an imbecile. Good thing Daisy is, well, how shall I put it? Intellectually challenged.
But no grudge.
I'm not one to bear a grudge.
And who can vouch for that?
I can. Miss Jones is not one to bear anything.
Steve, can I have a word in private?
Yes, of course. What is it?
I think we should search all the cabins.
Good idea. Why?
For clues. Evidence. Isn't that what we need?
Oh, yes. Good idea. I'll let them know. Everybody!
Shh! No!
No?
If you tell them, they'll try and get rid of any evidence.
Surely they've done that already.
The only way they can safely dispose of anything is overboard. And on this deck, there are 2 watchmen patrolling 24 hours a day.
You're right. They'd have to do it at night time.
I'll volunteer to do Poppy's cleaning rota in the morning. We can search at the same time and no one need know.
I think you've missed your calling.
Oh, does somebody want to order a drink?
No, I meant... never mind.
Oh, mother, look at you. Your dress is caught in your knickers again. Come here. Let me help you.
Stop that, Fred, or I'll give you a piece of my mind.
You can't spare it. Right, you sit by the table and I'll go to the bar. Drink?
Sherry, please, dear.
Marie, pour mother a sherry, will you? But please, take your time. Charles, Tiff, can I get you anything?
Not for us, Fred. Come on, Charles. Let's go watch the sunset. We can eat later.
Ooh, let go of my arm. I hate being dragged up on deck.
Really?
Yes, I much prefer to dress casual.
The evening dinner went by without a hitch, which was a shame, as I'd ordered grilled hitch and sautéed potatoes from the a la carte menu. The guests returned to their cabins for the night. I carried out thorough physical examinations when they left the dining salon to make sure they didn't steal any cutlery which could become future murder weapons. Mr. Alcock took a lot of examining. I thought I'd found a rolling pin in his trouser pocket. Turned out he was just pleased to see me. With all the suspects all back under lock and key, I helped Marie shut up the bar.
The end to another evening.
Yes, and still no closer to pinpointing the murderer.
I'm sure you're on the right track. So, the room searches, I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm guessing we'll have to be up early.
You're kidding. We don't clean until the guests leave their rooms, and none of this lot will be up before midday.
Knock on the door when it's time?
Well, it might look suspicious, me knocking you up.
Not half as suspicious as if I knocked it. Yes, you're right.
Perhaps this once I should stay in your cabin.
You want to sleep in my cabin?
Well, purely for practical reasons. You could give me a bunk up. What do you say?
Bedtime.
Well, detective devotees, tune in to hear the next heart-pounding, rib-tickling episode of Murder on the Oriental Princess.